Hey there, thanks for tuning into DuckBricks. I'm Chris, and over on the Ninjago Media Project pretty recently, there were some really interesting Ninjago development files that were just revealed, showcasing some prototype models, early story concepts, story bibles that were unfinished from the early waves of Ninjago. And a lot of this information we've never seen before. I cannot wait to dive into this because going through these was just a dream come true. I always love taking a look behind the development process of my favorite LEGO themes, and this is no exception. So let's dive into some of these brand new, old LEGO Ninjago prototype designs, story ideas, and take a look at what could have been for one of my favorite LEGO themes. Let's go.
I don't know about you, but one of my favorite things about looking at old LEGO concept art is seeing like some of the coolest things imaginable, and then seeing something like this, where you're wondering, what was LEGO cooking? So join me because over the past few days, I've kind of been just going on this journey looking through old LEGO concept art, and specifically looking at Ninjago. Now, I've done a few Ninjago concept art videos here and there, but I kind of wanted this one to be a little bit more informal, looking at some really strange pieces of Ninjago history. We're going to focus on early Ninjago history and kind of just the lead up to Ninjago, and I'm going to do, hopefully, if these do well and folks want to see more, a lot more videos about different parts of LEGO and different parts of Ninjago history, because there's a lot to see here and we can't see everything today. So for those who don't know, the story of like where Ninjago was coming from initially started with a line called LEGO Spirit Defenders, and this was a concept in 2003 by someone only known as Wong. And people have been trying to figure out like, who is this? Like, when I think Wong, it's like, I don't know if it's the Wong you're thinking of, but it's simply signed Wong, and it showcases Ghost Ninja versus Skeletons, and you can kind of see where that was beginning to lay the groundwork of the Ninja versus Skeletons idea for Ninjago 2011. Here, obviously, this was 2003, so the one build that we can see is kind of like an artwork piece of some sort of a siege machine, which kind of looks pretty rudimentary. The temples are shrouded in darkness, so it's really hard to make out what's going on, but it is really interesting how the Ninja versus Skeletons idea really came about that early. Well, obviously LEGO didn't pick it up though, so we waited a few years until Mike Rayhawk came to work for LEGO. He's one of the more prolific concept artists that we've seen for all sorts of LEGO themes over the years, and he came up with this idea also called Ninja Ghosts, and he said it was based off of that early spread that he found in the LEGO archives by someone named Wong. Again, don't know who Wong is, but he discovered that and he said, hey, maybe we can actually make this into a full-on theme. So he took that basic premise of ninja ghosts with like glowing red eyes and pitted them against these skeletons. The strange thing here is that like it's kind of unclear who the good guys are. Like the ninjas seem pretty sinister with the glowing red eyes, and the skeletons seem to actually have some like regular humans working alongside them. Maybe they're like resurrecting these skeletons and having them fight the ninja who are the evil attackers. I really don't know, but you can see some Ninjago DNA there, like a dragon in the background. You have a really cool glow-in-the-dark blue skeleton horse, which I really wish we got. I mean, we did get the glow-in-the-dark skeleton horse, but the glowing blue one, like I'm thinking that's more transparent blue, would have been really cool. And obviously this was early enough where the concept build is built on top of the classic raised LEGO base plate, which they were doing for Castle as recently as like 06, 07. So it really goes to show that this feels like an early preliminary LEGO idea for what could be a very early theme, but it is cool to see that. We've got some sketches of the minifigures as well, a little bit more close up, so again, kind of hard to tell who are the good guys and who are the bad guys, even a sketch that goes alongside it. But it wouldn't be until closer to 2009 where we actually got to see Ninjago start to be fully fleshed out. Now I'm going to do an entirely separate video on this concept because I was reading this book, The Secret Life of LEGO Bricks, recently, and inside that book there was a really strange passage that I was reading, and I said, oh, that's kind of a weird thing to note, and they went back and visited it again, so it eventually opened up this rabbit hole of LEGO research and kind of discovering things that is not a topic for this video because there's already enough to cover in this video. But long story short, basically the original gimmick for Ninjago was not actually going to be spinners, and initially they had a couple of different ideas for what it was going to be, and I'll save those for later, but I think Ninjago would not be nearly as successful if they went for some of those ideas versus what we eventually got with the spinners. But once I got the spinners figured out, there were a lot of these interesting files that surfaced that I wanted to take a closer look at, which again I mentioned at the beginning of the video in the intro. And the first one is actually Ninjago 2012 web game RFP. So this is actually a brief that was given to a video game development company. This file is publicly available online. You can find it in the media project. For once, I'm not the one actually revealing these files. I'm simply looking at what you can see online. So take it up with the media project if you have questions as to where these came from. I have no idea where these came from, but they are available online. The idea behind this document is if you read through the PDF, basically they're paying this company a pretty high amount of money, if I do say so myself, to basically make a video game to kind of be launched in January of 2012 alongside the Rise of the Serpentine season, and then have different expansions as episodes come out. And there's a couple of things that I want to note here. It says Ninjago is LEGO's premier play theme for 2012, and they want to create 4 targeted releases. Ninjago will continue to be a priority in future years, so the game experience should offer opportunities to continue the expansion through 2013. It is an asynchronous social game where clans of ninja fight against each other for glory. There is a pinball-inspired core solo game where players can battle the Snake Men, is what they're calling them, one-on-one. Players can connect spinners and all that, and combine them in all sorts of different ways. And associated with that is an image of the key reference for buildable spinners. And this is actually very, very different than a lot of what we eventually got. I think this is probably one of the most interesting pieces of development artwork or prototypes that I've seen personally from Ninjago, just because it is so different. It actually is a little bit higher res in this file called Backboard Customize, and I feel like this image is the epitome of like weird LEGO concept models, where you can see like high-res, super cool serpentine concepts. Where is bro? Where is this 3-headed serpentine? I want to get that as a physical minifigure. You can also see them like kit bashing different characters. Like you can see the manta ray piece from LEGO Atlantis being recolored in green and like painted white for some snake heads, which is actually really cool. That actually kind of works way better than I thought it would. So there's some really cool minifigure components to see here. And then you get to the stronger shields, and LEGO, what is this? Like, what? What is that supposed to be? It's like the protective shield of like weird grabbing hands. They look kind of reptilian, but snakes don't really have hands, so I don't really know like what that is supposed to be. Like, was that a good guy thing? It kind of looks like a bad guy thing. But I am very happy we did not get those as pieces. I think those would have been some of the most like out of system LEGO pieces ever. They're so weird to look at. I don't know what LEGO was cooking with that. But then again, you get some really cool concepts, like they were trying to come up with a way to make like a snake sit on the spinner. So you have this like piece that they were considering molding, which obviously ends in the standard tip of the tail piece, but it's molded to have like a little snake head sitting on top of a brick. And I think that is super cool. I really wish we got that piece. Moving on from that, we have all sorts of different crowns, and you can see where the crowns eventually ended up. Like most of these silver ones we eventually got for the ninja, even the snake ones, which here it looks a lot more like a coil of snakes. They kind of simplified it down and made it fit more in the LEGO system with the snake elements, but that is actually a really cool piece to consider, and obviously it being in red makes me think of the vermilion. You have your hidden blades underneath, which we did eventually get. They look a little bit different than the final versions, but it is cool seeing the early designs for both the snake ones and the ninja blades. I actually like the snake ones here a lot better. As a kid, it was very difficult for me to parse like what the snake head was versus the snake tail, and the transparent pieces just didn't really work for me for the snake blades underneath the spinners. And I actually think these work a lot better. You can clearly see they're supposed to be little snake heads. And then you have this concept at the bottom called precision cones, and those never made their way into the spinners. I don't know what those are supposed to be. Like, precision cones, looking at them, they just look like larger boat studs. But I feel like that will make spinners just wobble even more. I don't really know what they were cooking with that. I'm very curious what the underside of those were supposed to look like, but it is pretty interesting seeing them kind of devise this entire system for something to be added on the bottom of the spinner, and then just never really do anything with it. But altogether, very, very bizarre piece of artwork here. You can see it's super early. You've got like Clone Trooper J, which, I mean, obviously, gotta army build that, Clone Trooper J. And even the weapons on the top are utilizing these more interesting weapon pieces, which some of which we kind of got in some form in 2012, but never really quite like this. Those look really cool to me though. I kind of wish we got more stuff like that. But then moving on from that, kind of going back to our RFP, kind of our technical requirements document for this Ninjago web game, which, I mean, I would have to think back to 2012, but I don't remember a social web game for Ninjago that strongly in my mind. I would have to think back. Again, I don't fully remember everything, but I feel like that would have been a bigger deal than it was. But going through, you have some key art, and there's a couple of interesting things to see here in the prototype sets. These are obviously almost fully finished versions of the sets, but there are a couple of weird things, like the Snake Pit Battle Arena. They have Slithra there. And if you remember in 2012, we never got Slithra as a spinner character. We really only got him in some of the sets and accessory packs. And for whatever reason, they did release that set, but instead they gave us a second Lasha. And I don't know why they did that. I don't know why they didn't just keep it Slithra, which was what it was supposed to be. So maybe they felt like Lasha was lime green, and as one of the Venomari, he fit better with the lime green snake in the head. I don't really know, but that's weird. I kind of wish we got a Slithra spinner. Moving on from that, Destiny's Bounty is pretty much the same. There's a weirder Destiny's Bounty promo piece that we'll see later on in this video, so we'll go back to that. But as we get into the second half of the year, these sets feel a bit different. There's obviously just the mech simply titled Samurai, and you can see it is built a little bit differently, like the armor on the side of the hips looks a bit different. You have your snake vehicle here, which is just the Fangpire mech, which actually looks pretty remarkably identical to Mark Stafford's final design. But the weirdest one here is simply titled Kai's Ninja Vehicle. So I guess the Ultra Sonic Raider was just supposed to be Kai's, but you can see, like, at least I think Cole sitting in the back there, but it looks like this was before they came up with the idea to have the jet split off. And it's really interesting because the way they did the treads was pretty cool, actually. I don't think we've ever seen that technique in an official LEGO set. I could be wrong. I've built a lot of sets though, but I could be wrong. But what they're doing is they're using the underside of tiles and attaching them to the tread elements, which is cool. And maybe they deemed that like too unstable for a build. I kind of want to try that like on my own and roll that around and just see how that works out, because that is super interesting. That's weird. I've never seen that in an official LEGO build. I've seen that on mocks, but I don't know how sturdy that is. So interesting to see that. Otherwise, almost everything is the same. And then you have a bit of a minifigure overview. I don't know what's going on with the font here, but that's really interesting. That they just kind of have like these whole different designs for the characters. And then they have a story overview. There's not much else like really that interesting to see here from a Ninjago development material. It's just a lot about the game and the real world objects, the concept of anti-venom, which of course that like they wanted to have it be a donation where you can like donate it to clans or have players use it as a currency. I don't remember this. Like, I don't remember this game being online. If anyone in the comments remembers this video game, do let me know. I could be totally wrong. I was on LEGO.com a lot as a kid, and I remember playing a Ninjago game. But I don't remember it being this complicated, where it was like, oh, it's a whole social interactive thing. Sounds kind of like Clash of Clans, but Ninjago and online. So I'm very curious. I'm quite curious to see that. And it was supposed to come out in 2012, so I don't know. Very interesting stuff to see, but this whole document just kind of goes through more and more items here, and it's just very, very in-depth details on how they actually wanted this game to work, which is pretty cool. Moving on from that, though, we have some early development images from the Ninjago website, which is super cool. This is probably from early, I want to say 2010, looking at the old Ninjago logo, but some of the minifigures are finished and finalized, so I'm guessing that you can see what they were supposed to look like. The interesting thing there is that you can also see a version of the spinners on this website, which has them look more like a tornado, where instead of having this spinning platform, they actually were looking like a tornado, where clearly they were experimenting with lots of different spinners, and the book I mentioned at the beginning has a lot more in detail about how the spinners came to be, so we'll go back to that for a future video. Moving from that, though, we have a couple of pitch videos for Ninjago, and honestly, I think these are online a lot. Like, people have seen these, so I'm just gonna kind of blitz through them, but you can watch them in detail. I think Tommy Andresen posted one of them on his YouTube channel, actually, so it is always cool to see some of these older Ninjago concepts, where you have the old version of Sensei Wu with just like a standard kind of not even a hat element, he was just wearing like a disc element on the top of his head, which is very funny, but you can see that, and then pretty much just some early product stuff like that. I won't spend too much time on it. There was an early concept for Ninjago's second year, which involved the ninja reawakening this giant stone guardian, because Garmadon woke up this evil stone statue to rampage through the city, which is pretty funny because that eventually did come to be in Ninjago 2018 for Sons of Garmadon. So it's cool to see how they were reusing these like 2010 samurai statue concepts, and obviously Stone Samurai came into play in 2013 for the final battle sets, so they were drawing from some of these early ideas there. But then we can move on to take a look at some of these other images. Back for the 10th anniversary of Ninjago, we got some really cool images of the development material for some of the minifigures, like the snakes and so on and so forth, and some of the skeletons. And we saw these for the anniversary, so I won't spend too much time focusing on those because those are really readily available online, but it is cool to see some of the early concepts for what they were trying to figure out when it came to the ninja, even a very cool samurai armor element, which I really wish they eventually made. But from there, we can move on to a lot of really interesting, like, early spinner designs. For whatever reason, all of these say Cobrai series, like Cobrai Kai and Cobrai Kronk, which I guess is one of the skeletons. I don't know what they mean by Cobrai there. Like, I'm thinking Cobra Kai, but that's not LEGO. So I don't know why they were saying like Cobrai Strike. Maybe that was an early name for Spinjitzu, but very, very odd. Obviously, you can see some of the early names as well. Like Ren was the early name for Jay, and obviously you have Zane, but I think their names are even switched on the packaging, making it even more confusing. And then you had Edward being a name for Jay as well. So altogether, there was a lot of like craziness going on with the ninja names. They really just were going back and forth. But then one of my favorite images here is just this weapons picture, where it shows that LEGO was putting a lot of effort into making the weapons for the ninja, which I think is actually really cool. Not only you can see some like early molds and designs for ninja weapons, which you can see in artwork form for a lot of concept art for Ninjago, it all is coming together, seeing these physically, but you can also see these weapon elements just fully brick built for the spinners, and it kind of makes me wish that LEGO put this amount of effort into weapons nowadays. Like, today we're lucky if the ninja get like, oh, it's a sword or like a regular katana. We don't even really see them get their signature weapons anymore. Like, there was a time where Cole would always get a hammer and Jay would always get nunchucks, Zane would always get his bow or shurikens, but now I feel like they don't really care and all the ninja just get katanas, which is a little bit lame. I wish that they would go back to this time of making all the weapons feel unique, and this is a really good example of their development there. There's a couple of other interesting Excel sheets here which showcase the development for different ninja like spinners, and I find that very interesting because they obviously have all of the element pieces for the parts they were wanting to include in all the spinners, and even all the cards they wanted to include. So a very interesting document to read through. There is a Ninjago glossary here, which is interesting, like what does ninja mean, what does Skulkin mean, all of that. So it's very, very cool to see like this sort of like Ninjago dictionary where they were trying to use that for marketing materials. And they even have an interesting how to play video, which showcases a prototype spinner where they were teaching people how to use the Ninjago characters to battle on spinners. And you can see the prototype version of Kai there with the circular symbol on his torso in the video. So those were actually made physically, which is super, super cool. Even some of the early artwork as well, which is very nice to see. Some of my favorite pieces of concept art in this entire folder was seeing stuff like that. Moving on from that, we have a couple of renders for 2012, nothing super crazy. Fang Sui here has a red torso instead of white, which is interesting. There's also a file in here somewhere that's titled Gang Sui, and I just find that very funny. Like, dude looks like he's in a gang in that image. I mean, honestly, that dude is, I would not mess with that guy. He really does look like he belongs in the gang. But you can see that, which is cool. And then finally, there is a quick look at the 2012 2HY models, but honestly, these look so close to the final versions. There's a little bit of an interesting difference in the graphics when it comes to the Ultra Dragon, so it's just called Epic Battle, but you can see the way the head is done is a little bit different. Like, they were just kind of messing around with like different colored artwork on there, and there's even a version of the dragon where you could see different colored heads that was shown off at the LEGO house for the 4-headed dragon. So that would have been cool too. Although I do like how they unified it under the white color scheme. Moving on from that, we just have a couple of other early development documents, and these are very interesting to me personally, just because they talk a little bit more about like how much money LEGO was wanting to make from Ninjago, how strong it is of an IP, what they were trying to do to build out Ninjago. But maybe this isn't like the most interesting thing for a video because it's very text-based and it's really just in-depth on like their campaign for Ninjago and how they were going to be marketing it and how they were going to try to make it kind of this viral thing of becoming a ninja. So if you want to read through that, I've linked the media project in the description below. You can see all of these publicly available online for free with the Ninjago Media Project, which is a really cool project that's trying to catalog a lot of LEGO media, especially with everything related to Ninjago. So I always love seeing like media preservation like that. No idea where they find these documents, but it's always very fun for me as a fan, especially someone who loves seeing the development of LEGO themes like this, get to see kind of behind the scenes and a peek behind the curtain, and especially because it's so old nowadays. Like, this is 2011, the launch of Ninjago. This is like ancient history at this point, so it is very cool to see stuff like that. There's a whole lot of other things to see here, and there's a lot of other concept art that I want to get to, a lot of other old Ninjago stories, but I think it's a pretty good time to end this video here. So let me know in the comments, what are your favorite pieces of early Ninjago development material? Did you learn something new while watching this? And are you going to be going through those files yourselves and kind of looking through what we can find in the early development days for Ninjago? Let me know if you liked seeing a video like this where it's a little bit more informal. In the past, I've done videos where I have it a little bit more kind of tighter and I showcase literally every single piece of concept art I can in HD and talk over that. And those have been great, but I wanted to do something a bit different for this as we look at early Ninjago concepts. So let me know what you think in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and bye for now.